Hey guys, we are coming at you again. We're going to redo what we tried to do yesterday. This is Chris Mincola with the Mincola Group over at West USA Realty, and I'm joined with Evan Einhorn of Modern Home Lending. And yesterday we had some sound issues and echoing. I don't know what was going on there, but we're going to fix that all up today and make sure you guys are good to go. So today we're going to be talking about what we were going over yesterday, and that was investment properties and what you should know. Um, and the other thing I just want to remind you of, as usual, like, follow, subscribe, and share us with your friends and family. Make sure that you get our name out there so we can share the good news about real estate with everybody else. All right. Um, and be sure to ask questions. We like to get you guys involved, and we run a lot of this stuff off of just what we get on questions from our clients. So
Yep.
let us know what you think. All right. So first thing I had on the list, Evan, was finding the right property.
Yeah, so we'll try to keep it short and sweet today, but run through the main points because I know some people may have heard this yesterday. But finding the right investment property. So, tons of different routes to go, and we'll talk about risk versus reward later. But, you could be looking at a condo, you could be looking at a multi-unit, multi-family housing like a small apartment complex or something like that. You could be looking at a single family home. So there's all different things, and it really depends on, are you looking for a shorter term investment? Are you looking for longer term investment? Are you Airbnb-ing it? Is it a long-term rental? Do you want something that might be a little riskier, but maybe more reward? So all these things are factors that Chris and I, help our clients and look at to say, hey, if you want something of low maintenance, it's okay. It's okay if you're not going to make quite as much money, but low maintenance, peace of mind, and it's a long-term investment, we'll be able to find that for you. If you're willing to take some risk and you want a shorter term investment, we could look at that too. So
Yeah, and one of my big pet peeves is use a realtor, please. Even if you've done investments before or you haven't, especially if you haven't, make sure you use a realtor. I can't tell you how many times we go into a situation with people who have money, and I guess sometimes they think they might have money to burn, but once they get into the project, they don't, and they may think they know the market, they may think they know what to go through and what to do on properties, but there's a lot of things that they aren't thinking about because they're not as in the business as we are, or maybe not in as many properties or seeing as many deals as we have on all aspects on both buyer and seller side. So it's really super important to make sure you're always working for a professional. If you're dealing with loans, obviously Evan can point you in the right direction. The thing we love about Evan is, if he doesn't specifically have a product in house, he'll make sure he gets you to someone who does.
yeah.
And he's not selfish in that way, so to speak. he's very much going to be on your side. So one of our biggest things is that I would say, right, Evan, just making sure you're working with some professionals.
Making sure you're working with professionals, we're going to do what's best for you. And I mentioned it yesterday, but you know, Chris is obviously a realtor. I'm obviously a mortgage broker, but we deal with people's finances every day. So if you need anything, if you have an insurance question, a tax CPA question, whatever, we might be able to give you some guidance. And even if we can't, we'll point you in the right direction. Because my goal is not to say like it's 100% of your money shouldn't be invested in real estate. Like a good investment portfolio is diversified. So we'll help you, we'll help you figure out what's the best action plan for your personal wealth. So
Right. Okay, cool. And next thing I had was, Airbnb versus long-term rentals, pros and cons versus risk rewards. You know, one of the, one of the things you have to think about, obviously, is with Airbnb are you going to be in an area that's really going to be set up for short-term type rentals? In other words, probably want to be near, like, say, a Cardinal Stadium, or some place where there's going to be an influx of a lot of visitors, maybe even near student housing or hospitals, things like that, where you have an influx of a lot of people, like large hospitals, obviously. and things like that, where you're going to have a lot of influx of people in and out, right, Evan? Wouldn't that
Right.
kind of be true for that
Right.
type of
Right.
deal?
Right. So another thing is too is looking at the long-term possibility of that, of, hey, even though this is a good Airbnb area now, is there anything that's going to impact it later? Like, I know some of the spring training stadiums have moved,
Yeah.
and that played a big factor. So things like that we can look at, and are there new, and like we talked about, you can help find complexes that allow Airbnb, which are few and far between.
Right.
But I know some people that have bought a condo, thought they were going to Airbnb it, didn't realize that the complex doesn't allow it, and then they had to rent it out long term, which isn't the end of the world, but didn't fit their goals. So
yeah, with HOAs and stuff, you got to be careful of that. Also, keep in mind there's a certain limits on how much you can live in the property if you need to do that at all. Let's say, for instance, when it comes to taxes and being able to write that off, so that's one thing. Other thing to think about too is your carrying costs, obviously, utilities, things like that, in between when people are staying there during seasons or maybe vacation seasons, vacation type rental like that, or having it furnished. Obviously those are things to keep in mind.
Right.
Yeah. So
and as far as risk versus reward, I wanted to go into depth that, hey, a lot of people, and again, everyone has their own opinion, but a lot of people think, Airbnb, short-term rentals, that's the riskiest, because you have no idea what your rent's going to be next month. However, we know a lot of people that are killing it right now and are making a ton of money, with the investments as an Airbnb.
Yeah.
And then, you might, so that's kind of in the middle as far as risk goes. A lower risk might be, hey, let's rent it long term. Let's find someone to rent for 12 months at a time, or maybe even a 2-year lease. That way, okay, I'm getting my $1,500 a month rent every single month for their lease. I only need to worry about small repairs. There's also less expensive. And on the most riskiest side, as far as real estate investing, is typically fixing and flipping. But again, there could be huge reward there. It's not, it's not necessarily as easy as you see in the shows, like HGTV.
Yeah.
Or else I probably wouldn't be sitting in this chair. I'd be out fixing and flipping homes. But, there's a spectrum of risk, in real estate. It doesn't need to be risky, but almost with anything, including the stock market, the more risk, the more reward you get.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And, obviously things like repairs, keeping it fresh, clean, updated to current needs, what people are looking for, especially in certain areas, like in Arizona, obviously something that might be big is pool, right? Air conditioning would obviously be important, especially in hotter climates. So, all things to think about, right? When you're carrying costs and what you're trying to do as far as marketing to people, and then your margins. So, Evan, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to any of that?
No. And the thing is too, if you decide, hey, I want to Airbnb something now, I have time in my life, or I want to manage it myself, or I can take on a little risk, maybe because you're younger and you don't have those expenses and it's earlier on and you don't need this for retirement. You can totally Airbnb it for a few years, or short-term rental, a VRBO, home away. Like Chris and I can help you with some of the initial preliminary info that you need to get started. As far as once you purchase your home, we don't just disappear. We'll help you out a bit.
Right.
But you could turn it into a long-term rental down the road. Like, just because you decide on one thing doesn't mean it's set that way. So, there is a lot of flexibility in real estate investing, and once or you could sell it down the line. You know what I mean? So, talk to us. We'll talk about your short-term goals, long-term goals, and see what may be a fit. And we might say, hey, you know what, real estate, you might not want to add this to your portfolio right now. Or we might look at it and say, hey, I know people that they own their current home and they have so much money invested in the stock market, and that's not super diversified. And then I know people that are 100% real estate, and that also isn't 100% diversified. So we can kind of look at the whole picture. We're not just looking at real estate. We're looking at how it impacts you and your bottom line wealth. So
Right. The biggest thing is, to, kind of get into the game, right? You have that forced savings, so to speak. And then when you have real estate, you have options. So that's the way I look at it. So anything else you think we didn't cover, as far as what to know, as far as flipping, you kind of want to have a good plan. Obviously you want to, you want to kind of have your color palettes, your materials, all that kind of priced out, figured out ahead of time, especially if you're going to be doing multiples or more than one down the road, kind of keep the same thing across the board already picked out. So you're not trying to have to recreate the wheel unless, from one property to the next or area to the next, you need to change things up a little bit, maybe have 2 to 3 different options for that sort of thing. But just, there's a lot to it. That's why it's so important to contact us. And of course, if you need contractors, anything like that, we've got that at our disposal too, that could give you some good bids on getting places cleaned up, freshened up, and all that good stuff.
Yep.
So, Evan, anything else you wanted to add to any of that?
Not in that section, but we can talk about down payment,
Okay.
and also qualifying kind of at the same time. A lot of people don't realize it's from an income and mortgage standpoint. Lots of times it actually can be easier to qualify for an investment property. And that's because, let's say it's going to rent for $2,000 a month. We can use at least $1,500 of that, to help you qualify as far as income to offset your mortgage. So as far as qualifying income, is actually way easier. Credit's a little tougher, as far as credit score needs. And the biggest thing that holds people back is down payment. So, a down payment on your conventional loan, if you're looking at a 1-unit investment property, is 15% down. So that's where that's what holds a lot of people back. But if you're putting 15% down, you should be cash flowing pretty well in this market. Can't say that in all markets, but right now in this market in Phoenix, yes. So 15% down, and again, risk versus reward. I have someone that just bought a property to Airbnb, a specific condo that allows it. They're making a ton of money. They knew they'd make a ton of money. They pulled out cash from their current home. I wouldn't recommend to anyone, but they had the entire budget and business plan in writing that they knew it was going to work. Or at least they had that high level of confidence that they don't mind pulling a few dollars out of their, out of their home to do that. So,
right.
Not saying that's the best for everyone, but we can at least look at that for you and kind of come up with creative ideas. Like, one other thing too is if you're a first-time home buyer, or if you're looking for a place to rent yourself and you don't need something big, you can buy a fourplex with FHA with 3.5% down. So not a lot of people know that. Conventional, if it's in a certain area, or if you make under a certain amount of income, which over a third of the value is in, you can actually go 5% down and buy up to 4 units as long as you're living in one of them as a primary residence. So that's an amazing way to leverage a mortgage as far as real estate investment, especially if you're going to live there. So
that's kind of different too, because when we think of FHA, we always think of, have to live there type of thing, and not for investment necessarily, as far as an investment property to rent or whatever.
And sometimes, but you could, sometimes 3 to 4 units could be tough because of some extra rules. But, if you're buying a duplex,
right?
So if you want to buy 2 units, move into one and rent out the other, and have them help you pay your mortgage. And, instead of having maybe a $200,000 property, maybe you have a $350,000 asset. You know what I mean? Right. So those small tips and tricks, if you're flexible, we can look at it, and that could be your biggest asset of your life. Yeah, it is actually most people's biggest asset, other than 401ks. So
right, absolutely, awesome. Okay, and then we had along those lines, just real quick, hard money lenders. Basically, looking at pretty much double the interest rate in some parts of the country. I know it's even a little bit more than that. So give or take that, but
Yeah, so hard money. So actually, we deal with some hard money lenders. Sometimes we refer it out if it makes sense, like if they're more competitive. Sometimes we can do it in-house and broker it through us.
You're
But
right.
hard money, people are willing to pay 9, 10, 11, 12% interest rate, if you're fixing and flipping a property because you're only paying it over so many months. So
Right.
if you're looking for a shorter term loan and you have some money down, typically, now we can look at every situation is different because there's even hard money lenders that will give you a line of credit to say, hey, here's $1 million, go buy different homes. You need to, let us know what home you're buying before you pull cash out. But lots of times they'll have you put 15% down or 25% down of what the final value is going to be. So if you're buying something that's 150, but it's going to be worth 200,000 after estimated, they'll have you put down $50,000 down. So I'm always happy to look into that too. Like we have options, and if I know that our hard money is not a good fit, I will refer you to a hard money lender that's better. Same thing, I kind of do something similar on a home equity line of credits. We have a few. As far as a regular first mortgage goes, almost no one can touch our interest rates, but some of those other interesting products like hard money and home equity line of credits, reach out to me and I can kind of figure out what's best for you. So
yeah, and one other thing I just want to mention too would be seller lease. The carry back. So you own a property and you want to actually basically be the lender, and sell the property to someone, but carry the loan. That's another little way of doing it, where instead of renting it out to somebody, they're making mortgage payment, you're making the additional money off of it, but you're not necessarily having to worry about repairs like you would on a rental, or some of the other carrying costs, like your taxes and everything. You can kind of figure in all those costs into the payment that you want to give that person, and kind of take it from there. So gives you a little less risk than even with the renting. So any thoughts on that, Evan? Or
it's not too prevalent now.
Yeah.
But a few years from now, if rates go to the 7, 8, 9%, I think you'll see that more and more. Because if a seller's charging 8 or 9% interest rates and that's the rates for the market, then people might be more apt to do that. Not a lot of sellers are going to give someone a rate in the 4s right now because it's just not worth it for them. So it's out there, not very common, but again, like I think you'll see some adjustable rates coming back in a few years. But we'll have to see. Not right now. Rates are low, and it's not too bad to get financing. So,
great. And the last thing we had was qualifying using future rents to make it easy.
Yeah, so that is super easy. Like, if you buy a property, the appraiser, not only will they value the property and say, hey, this is what we think it's worth based on our opinion, but they'll also say, hey, this is what we think you can rent it out for. So for most programs, we can use 75% of the new rent as additional income. So if you make $5,000 a month and this new income property is going to make you $2,000, we can typically say, okay, here's your $5,000 plus an extra $1,500. So you're making $6,500 a month estimated to help you cover that new mortgage.
Pretty sweet.
They do factor for some expenses and vacancies, so that's why they take away 25%. But that's actually pretty conservative. So
that's awesome. Yeah, we use that for a few of our clients, so it's always a nice way to go. Guys, did you have anything else, Evan?
No, I mean, there's so many different opportunities. So if you're thinking about it, even if you just bought your first home or something, we can talk about, oh yeah, this might be something good for you a few years down the line, or this might be something that we can look into now. One thing we didn't cover, that I know a lot of people that I've used personally, that maybe you don't have that big down payment of 15% and you don't want to touch your equity and you don't have the savings. And maybe you're thinking about moving anyways. Lots of people, you can move out of your current house, buy a new primary residence with a low down payment, and turn your current residence into a rental. So that's actually probably the most prevalent that we've had, you and I, Chris, as far as people with investment properties that move out of your current one, turn that into investment, buy a new one with a low down payment, maybe in a different area that you wanted, or you want your house slightly different. Maybe you bought your first home a few years ago or a couple of years ago, and you want something a little different.
Right.
Let's look at.
And at that time or before they move out, you could even pull money out of it to make improvements for the rental, or pull money out for your down payment on your next property that you're heading to, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go with that.
Yeah.
So if you've got some equity into it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And prices have gone up. So, I mean, I think I looked at America.
Yeah.
I think Armless was saying last year, I think prices went up almost 6% just last year. So
yeah, guys, right now we're ranked 7th of the 10 hottest markets in the country. So one other thing I will note, as far, again, we're always talking about, we're going to have a crash. We're going to have a crash. Every area is going to be a little different now with the way things are. But we're in a very balanced market. We're over 4 months supply right now, which is great. We're in a very balanced market between buyers and sellers. 4 to 6 months would be balanced. But over 48% of people in America have 50% equity or more, 50% or more equity in their homes. Probably a good sign that we're not going to head to what we had, back.
So here's another couple of stats for you.
Yeah.
Foreclosures are at the lowest they've been in 18 years.
Yep.
Which is nice. What else? Yeah. Oh, and Phoenix, out of major metropolitan cities, saw the second most job growth in America, which is nice here locally.
Yes.
Again, some markets have cooled down in other parts of the country.
Yes.
Ours, it's a good thing or a bad thing. Some of our buyers, had to compete with other offers, but that's why you work with professionals to make sure you get in there quickly.
And that's why you get pre-approved with Evan first with all your paperwork up front, so that we can negotiate properly for you, especially if you are selling a property. We need all that's going to be figured in, rather than just going out there and looking on Zillow and just running around looking at houses. We've got to, I hear this all the time, and it's completely backwards. We want to find the house first, and then we'll talk to the loan officer and figure all that out. Well, by that time, the house is gone that you liked. And prices, by the time you get everything figured out, there's probably, it seems like almost everyone, unless they've really, really been working on it, almost everyone has something to kind of clear up or clean up on their credit a little bit here or there, or to make it a little bit better from the analysis that Evan will do, so you can get a better rate or a better term. So, it's just makes sense to do that. It's kind of like if I'm going to go, run a Spartan marathon, am I going to go do that without going to the gym first for at least 6 months? Probably not. So, we want to make sure we're not putting the cart before the horse, right, Evan?
Right.
So, anyways, if you guys have any more questions, let us know. Evan, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can give me a call, 602-456-2273. Or you can go to our website, modernhomelending.com, or message Chris. He can get a hold of me for you.
Yeah, message us straight in here or on our Facebook, on our official Facebook page. Check us out at mincolagroup.com or 480-788-8569. You can call or text us there.
Cool. Thanks for having me again.
All right. Thanks, Evan. Thanks, guys, for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See ya.